So Thorin's company is the first list in here, and it can take Eagles, Gwaihir, and Radagast as well. Not Elrond and the Ravenhill Knights, so it's not that scene, but it's with Radagast running out, or you could use them going through Goblin Town or escaping to the Pines. You can only take Eagles if you also take Gandalf, and only Gwaihir can lead Eagles. And they do get some free Heroic March. They can spend their will points to Heroic March, and they can march even if they can't normally. That's really cool. Pick an objective marker. Dwarf models in range of that get dominant 2. And then the family groups within 3 inches of each other, so Fili and Kili, Balin and Dwalin, Biffa, Boffa, Bomber, they can spend each other's might, will and fate points as if they were their own. I love that. What a cool list. Army of Thror, right, apparently this is not so good. So it's Thror, Thrain, Young Thorin, Balin, Dwalin, Dwarf Kings, Erebor Dwarf Captains, Grimhammer Captains, Erebor Dwarves and Grimhammer Warriors. I'm surprised Dane isn't here. Is this not the Battle of Azanulbazar, or is that coming? Because Dane's definitely in that scene. But Erebor models treat Thor as a banner for 6 inches. They get +1 to wound against models that have got an objective. And then if they're in their deployment zone, they can reroll 1s. I guess 90% of the time, you're just going to be making the most of that 6-inch banner. They're just not as good as they used to be, but I think they'll be okay. So Iron Hills. You've got Dane, Dwarf Kings, Iron Hills Captains, Iron Hills Warriors, Goat Riders, the Chariot and the Ballistas. The army must include Dane Ironfoot, who's always the army general. So you're not going to be leading it with the Dwarf King. You can modify where and when you arrive in Maelstrom and in scenarios where you arrive as reinforcements. You can re-roll wound rolls of a natural 1 when you're in base contact with at least 2 or more friendly infantry models. So essentially, when the Iron Hills are in shield wall, they can also re-roll 1s to wound. They get Mountain Dweller Special Rule, and Dane gets 5+ Master of Battle. That's not massive benefits, but the Iron Hills are pretty good anyway. So good solid army there. Erebor Reclaimed, so this is Thorin charging out onto the field of battle through the Iron Hills dwarves. At this point the elves and Thranduil are in Dale, so this is Iron Hills and the champions of Erebor. So I like this one a lot. Infantry heroes all gain Heroic March on their profile, even if they can't normally. And if they do Heroic March, they can still charge. So you can Heroic March 8 inches with your dwarves straight into combat. You've got the family ties, so Biffa and Boffa and Bomber can use each other's might, will and fate. And then if it's only infantry, if all your heroes are only infantry, then friendly models can re-roll wound rolls of a natural 1 when making strikes. I don't think there's any option for mounted models. There must be. I must be missing something. But you're re-rolling 1s, you've got the family ties, and then you can march straight into combat. That's cool. I don't know what the best build of it would be. You're going to have to work out who's better. But you don't have to take Thorin or Dane. You could take Nori, Dory and Bomber leading Iron Hills. So there will be a good build for that. But that's cool. I like that. Army of Lake Town then. So we've got the Master of Lake Town, Alfred, Braga, Bard, Tariel, Kili. Oh, so this is when Smaug attacks. Tariel, Kili, Fili, Boffa, Oin, Lake Town Guard Captain, Bard's family, and then Lake Town Guard. Bard's family can start with Tariel if you want, and Lake Town Guard can only go with Lake Town heroes. That makes sense. So the Master can give Braga will points back. Then the Braga, the Master and Alfred can't take part in Bard or his family's heroic actions. Whatever. Thematic, I suppose. If Tariel's within 3 inches of a friendly dwarf model, she gets +1 to wound. And then all dwarf models can re-roll failed wounding dice with shooting attacks or in close combat. So that's Kili, Fili, Boffa and Oin. So they're not particularly killy dwarves. I don't know how competitive this army is. I like it in principle though. I'd always contemplated taking Smaug as one half of an army and then this to like a Throne of Schools or Smaug as part of the display, but I don't know if you remember at the GT last year, Phil Beale made an amazing Smaug Attack and Lake Town board, which was essentially this, and I'm glad I didn't take it because I would have looked a fool because his was incredible. The Survivors of Lake Town. So this is the battle for Dale essentially, but without the elves. Bard, Gandalf, Percy, Hilda, militia captains, Bard's family, Alfred, Bilbo, and Lake Town militia. You have to include Bard, everything else is do what you want. Lake Town, within 6 inches of Bard, get +1 to their fight value and count as in range of a banner, so there's that special rule. And Bard gains the Mighty Hero and Fearless rules. Whilst within range of an objective, warrior models can re-roll rolls of a 1. This is to represent them holding the streets. And if Bilbo moves through an enemy model that's holding an objective marker on a 2+, he can steal it from them, which is very cool. So he's the master burglar. That's officially happened. It says it increases attacks to 2 as well, so I don't know if that's a typo one way or the other, but very cool rule. The Garrison of Dale. So this is Girian's Dale, not King Bran's Dale. Okay, this is cool. So you've got Girian, Captains of Dale. The Windlance is obviously an option for Girian. Warriors of Dale, and then the Windlance as a separate option. You have to take Girian. But don't forget, he's 3 attacks. He's decent now. Friendly Dale models increase their shoot value to 3+. They can use their Hatred Dragon when shooting, and they can re-roll failed to hit rolls when shooting at monster models. They get the Fearless special. Sorry, Girian gains the Fearless special rule, and Dale models that can draw line of sight to and get +1 to any courage test they take. And if you're within 6 inches of a Windlance, or you're in your own deployment zone, you get +1 to wound when making strikes, so you're fully on the defensive. It depends on the scenario that, but if it's one where you're basically on the halfway line, you might be able to shoot the opponent into coming to your half, get the +1 to wound, because you'll likely have the shooting advantage. You're going to want to draw them to you. I like the tactics behind that one. That's cool. You're going to have the shooting advantage because it's just captains and Girian. If somebody's spent 400 points on Sauron or 200 points on Gilgalad, you're going to have so many bows, they're going to have to come at you, and then you're going to get +1 to wound. We've got an Erebor and Dale combined list now. So you've got Thror, Girian, Thrain, the Young Dwarves, all the captains, and then Dale, Grimhammers, and Erebor Dwarves. You've got to have at least one unique Erebor hero and Girian. 50% of the Dale warriors can have bows. 50% of the Erebor models can have throwing weapons. And then Dale has to lead Dale, Erebor has to lead Erebor. If you've got both types of model in a fight, they can re-roll 1s. Girian's a banner to Dale models. Thror's a banner to Erebor models. And then whenever a hero model spends a point of might on the roll of a 6, the might point is free and isn't used up. I'd need to work out the best possible build in terms of making it competitive, but I like the theme on this one. The Halls of Thranduil. So this is just all of the Mirkwood options. So Legolas, Tauriel, Thranduil, captains, rangers, warriors, palace guard, and knights. Within 3 inches of Thranduil, Mirkwood warriors gain +1 to wound when making strikes, and they treat the general as a banner. That's all that needs. There's plenty going on for Mirkwood to make it good enough. Rangers of Mirkwood has pictures of dwarves. So this is when they're fighting the spiders. So you've got Thorin's company, Tauriel, Legolas, Mirkwood Rangers. You've got to take at least one of Tauriel or Legolas, and one of them is going to be your general. It'll be Legolas, unless you've not got him, then it'll be Tauriel. The elves can re-roll 1s when making strikes, and they can shield, but they can't use the knife fighter rule if they do shield. Legolas gains the knife fighter rule. The dwarves can re-roll failed fate. Everybody gains hatred spider. And then the dwarves and elves can't benefit from each other's heroic actions or standfast. Definitely an interesting list. It might be one that's better without the dwarves, but it's a cool idea. I think competitively I'm probably taking Legolas, Tauriel, and a load of bowmen. There's no bow limit in this list, so that is the way to do it. Maybe there'll be a dwarf or two that a little special rule that might be useful. But love the theme of it. Louis got plenty of spiders. I think we've got to play this scenario out on the channel. I'd like to build a Mirkwood as well. That's a bit more involved though, so I didn't offer it up as our last board build option to our patrons, but I think the next batch will try and do something a bit more involved for springtime. Battle of 5 Armies, there's just a lot going on. If you've seen it in the Battle of 5 Armies, it's in this list, and you can re-roll ones if you're fighting in the same fight as a model from a different race. There'll be ways of building that are competitive. Assault on Ravenhill I know exists, but I've not looked at it at all. So we've got Thorin, King Under the Mountain, Bilbo, Thranduil, Killy, Philly, Dwalin, Legolas. I wonder what that taps out at then. So 130, 200, 300, 400, 500. So you use 650 points-ish. You've got to take Thorin, and it's always deployed as a single warband. Let's see what it can do. Wow, there's a lot going on here. So this is a breaking of the Fellowship style list. We need to do this versus breaking of the Fellowship. Oh my goodness, that's happening. Ravenhill versus breaking of the Fellowship. We'll have to roll the dice and decide whether it happens on Ravenhill or on Amon Hen. We've got boards for both now. Legolas gets Orcust for free, and he can Orcust for free, and he can throw it to Thorin if he wants to, if he's within 6 inches of it. Friendly models treat Thorin as a banner, and he counts as a banner for scenarios where you get victory points for having a banner. Killy and Philly increase their attacks to 3. That's what I thought might happen anyway, so that's cool. Dwalin gets to call a free heroic combat if Thorin's in combat, although he has to move to join him. Legolas gets fight value 7 and goes up to 3 attacks, and Thranduil rerolls all failed wound rolls. And then Bilbo's got like a throwing weapon, throw stones, that can reroll failed to wound dice. There's a lot going on there. That's awesome. Awesome list. I really want to see it against the Breaking of the Fellowship. Obviously it's got some big flaws in terms of winning objective games and things like that, but I want to see it in action. Love the theme. Radagast's Alliance, so these are the Eagles and Beorn that arrive at the Battle of 5 Armies and just clear everything out. You get +1 strength on the turn that you charge, and if Beorn is involved in a combat and kills every model he was engaged with, he can do a heroic move for free the following turn, not a heroic combat like Thranduil's was. Radagast has to be on his eagle despite the picture. And you have to include Radagast, and you can't take more fledgling eagles than great eagles, but it's Radagast on eagle, Gwaihir, Beorn, great eagle, fledgling eagles. Like it. And then the last one before the Forces of Evil is the White Council. This is definitely one that needed maybe a little tweaking. We know their standard profiles, they've got 2 attacks now, the wizards. So I don't think they're going to have this matching the wounds thing, but we'll find out. They've dialed it down a lot. I'm going to start with the last rule, which is they've all got dominant 3. I think that's why they've been able to dial it down a lot, because they can feasibly hold objectives now. If you've got 2 on one objective and 3 on another, you're probably going to end up holding those objectives. Maybe not if there's other dominant models near you. They can re-roll ones casting magical powers within 3 inches of Saruman. Reroll ones when making strikes within 3 of Gandalf. Move through difficult terrain within 3 inches of Radagast. And they treat Elrond as a banner, which is obviously another 3-inch buff. And within 3 inches of Galadriel, they gain the resistant to magic special rule. They can also cast spells from in combat, but not Nature's Wrath, Sorcerer's Blast, or the Wrath of the Bruinine. They get +1 to resist tests within 6 inches of each other. And that's it. There's no massive attacks bonus here. They're going to be hard to use. They're probably at the bottom end of being competitive now. I think that's one of the least competitive ones we've seen. I don't think that's terrible. We want them to be as competitive as possible. But I'd rather, if I had to choose, I'd rather they were more for thematic players and we had traditional armies to match up against for competitiveness. Really happy with a lot of these lists. I want to try out Thorin's Company. I want to try out Rangers of Mirkwood. I know they're similar to before because I didn't last time. Assault on Ravenhill, got to give it a go. And Garrison of Dale looks good. with the whole drawing them to you and then getting +1 to wound in your deployment zone. But there's lots to go out here. One half left, which will be the Forces of Evil. That'll be its own separate video, and I hope you've enjoyed this little series of me just talking at you while you paint and you stick up your new Christmas models and enjoy the hobby, basically.